Meet the different people, and real excited about the ride.
Day 2 in the curse of off-road races, the early morning start. Ahead of them, crews at 450 hard kilometers through some of the most rugged race territory anywhere in the world. The weather has traditionally played a major role in the outcome of the Mnet Lesotho Sunroof of Africa rally. There is nothing more punishing for race crews than Lesotho underwater. With river crossings part and parcel of this rugged event, rain can make or break the race for dozens of drivers and riders. Early leaders Richard Schilling and Ashley Thorne were intent on slowly grinding the opposition into the ground. Schilling won last his event by less than 2 minutes and was not keen to find himself in a similar position this time around. The game plan was for the Mototech pair to go out and build up as big a lead as was possible.
Not really anticipating any mud. And my local nav, Ashley Thorne, he says we'll be okay today, so put my trust in him.
For the single-seater drivers like Harry ROSCOE, having to do your own navigating is an added complication. The single-seaters rely to a great extent on route marking carried out by the organisers prior to the event.
No, today's the day of survival, tomorrow's the day of racing. Well, yesterday was a day for racing, today's the day for taking it easy.
The likes of Robert Wolk, also in the Class 9 single-seater, and ROSCOE have a simple method of trying to ease the navigation problem. The plan is to slot in behind a driver who does have a navigator. After their problems on the round the houses and time trial, Klaus Degenaar and Jeff Bell replaced the gearbox on the BP Chenoweth. Degenaar is one of the most aggressive drivers in off-road, but before turning to racing relied on horsepower of a different kind as one of South Africa's top show jumpers. At the head of the field, the Schilling-Thorne game plan was working. Still second, Harry ROSCOE was pushing hard in the Protea playing card race car and was gradually closing in on the leaders. One of the fastest men in off-road, ROSCOE was not about to let Schilling and Thorne have matters all their own way. The intrepid Vickers van Deventer and Billy Coetzee quickly won the hearts of roof followers. The pair were in a sort of catch-22 situation. Because it is an experimental class, neither would be classified in the official results. But this did not deter the pair from putting up a spirited show, what some people do for fun. Former winners Arpi Reinicke and Lucas Dreyer ran into problems on day 1 in the Sasol Ford. They started day 2 among the back markers and were intent on making up time. The Stengel-Illman Porsche was also running strongly. It was enough to make any Johannesburg northern suburbs yuppie wince to see a Porsche tackle terrain like this. By mid-morning, the sun was beaming down on Lesotho. The sweeping hills and the peace and tranquility of the mountains made a gentle picture, which is about to be rudely shattered by the arrival of the motorcycle brigade. First on the road was American rider Jimmy Lewis on the Lesotho Office Equipment Kawasaki. Lewis was looking comfortable and enjoying his first taste of off-road rallying in Africa. Passing Lewis was a determined Elfie Cox in the lubrication equipment Kawasaki. Third place Jeremy Davies on the Truck Africa KTM was also determined to catch the American. Fourth overall was Willie Island, mounted on the Super Tyre Suzuki and going well. Away from racing, Willie's passion is Harley Davidson's. First in the 200 class was Yuri Himan, who was keeping in touch with the leading bunch on the Pro Honda Kawasaki. It's an interesting sponsor motorcycle combination, but to confuse the issue even further, Himan works for KTM. Also going well in the 200 class was Richard Manning on the Winston Yamaha. Manning made history a couple of seasons ago when he became the first 200 class rider to win the tough Toyota 1000 Desert Race. An interesting tussle was also developing in the 200 class between DARRYL Curtis on the Linux Yamaha and championship leader Brian Bontekoning on the Lesotho office equipment Kawasaki. Up ahead, Jimmy Lewis was still looking comfortable. Elfie Cox was shadowing the American. And there are a few riders who know more about the roof tactics than the Natal Springbok. Still third was Jeremy Davies on the Truck Africa KTM. After a heavy bout of gastric flu, Davies was content to pace himself in the early stages. Willie Island was still taking his own advice and going as fast as he could on the Super Tyre Suzuki. Local man Patrick Andrews, who owns a trading store, was also part of the equation in the scrap up front. For Swedish rider Joachim Hedendal on the Ericsson Suzuki, conditions were a far cry from enduro racing in Europe. ERROL Dalton was still leading the 500 class charge on the Lesotho office equipment Kawasaki. Manhandling the big Kawa in rough country is no picnic. Behind Dalton was Hilton Hayward on the consistent cable-lock Super Tyres KTM. The high-tech KTM is a far cry from Hayward's other interest, the world of vintage. The pace had slowed somewhat for Vickers van Deventer, when the quad Suzuki finally cried enough. There wasn't a tow vehicle in sight, but off-roaders are a resourceful lot. It was the end of the road for Van Deventer, but Schilling and Thorne still had plenty of work ahead. Schilling and Thorne were first into a refuel area where anxious service crew await the arrival of their chargers. They were followed by Robert Walk in the Super Pave ROSCOE, who made the decision to press on regardless. On an event like the NNET Lesotho Sunroof of Africa Rally, a high priority is placed on safety. A network of medical teams is on constant duty.
Inside the helicopter, we've got all the basic life support facilities, like, you know, to keep an airway, to get a guy's heart going again, to give him some intravenous fluid if he needs some, or painkillers, whatever he needs, you know, splints for fractures, hardboards for back injuries, you know, just to get the guy comfortable so that he can go out to a better centrum if necessary.
In the pits, it all gets to be a little frenetic.
I've got an extension part to it. About 16 minutes.
We broke the accelerator cable about 2 k's back. And we just had to operate it by hand.
Please, give me the hammer. Get the hammer.
Somebody hold the bar.
Hold the bar.
No fuel.
Get it up before the seat.
it amazing how big boys always have little toys? With Harry ROSCOE involved in a major accident and out of the running, Richard Schilling and Ashley Thorne had built up a comfortable lead in the Mototec ROSCOE. They had around 20 minutes in hand and were looking good. Robbie Walk was also going well in the Superpave ROSCOE and had slotted into second place behind the Mototec car. Lying third were Nardus Elberts and Peter Mathieu in the Rapsa ROSCOE after a steady run. Springboks Cassie Coetzee and Richard Leake in the turbocharged Toyota Hilux were leading the Class 6s without too much difficulty. Now, the only Suzuki quad left in the race, Willie Coetzee mixing it with the leaders. Class 2 leaders were Wilfred Veslau and Dagmar Blankner in the familiar Astoria Bakery Bread Van Beetle. Some interesting battles were starting to develop in the mountains. Right on the tail of Joe Finch and Blake McKenzie in the Porsche ROSCOE were the SVM team of Cliff Barker and Mike Redden. A team to watch. Youngsters Craig Hopkinson and Martin Spencer have an excellent track record, one of the best prepared Beetles around. For Wiley Harrington and Bocky Garibay, it was proving to be a trying day. Fuel starvation problems plagued the Toyota Hilux, but they were shouldering on. For the race leaders, it was a clean run. Apart from one puncture, Richard Schilling and Ashley Thorne had no problems, and the pair gradually pulled away from the rest of the field. With both Harry ROSCOE and Robert Walk out after crashing, Friday's results saw Schilling and Thorne in complete control with a lead of 60 minutes.
We've done a lot better than I'd hoped. I mean, we'd wanted a 10-minute gap to be able to do a tyre change and things like that. Very happy.
A waiting game paid off for Elfie Cox. For most of the day, he shadowed Patrick Andrews. Cox then broke away on the lubrication equipment Kawasaki to win the section by a narrow margin. And there to greet her husband was a delighted Mrs. Cox. Cox held the 3-second lead over local favourite Patrick Andrews, with Jeremy Davies in third place after a massive accident over the edge of a cliff.
Yeah, the roof Africa is not what the roof is. They've left out all the passes. We had one tiny little pass today. Otherwise, it was just basically on roads, you know, and old bridle trails. You know, I've just been following Patrick Andrews all day.
After racing Section 1, the class positions in the car category looked like this. And in the bike section, they looked like this. It was a day of accidents and controversy, with Harry ROSCOE, Willie Island and Robert Walk all crashing out of the running.
There was a section that you get into an old tar road, the old non-used tar road, and it goes for maybe 10 k's. And all of a sudden, it veers off to where they've done made a new road, and it's an actual cutting, a culvert cutting. Well, when you talk a cutting, I'm talking maybe 10 meter high, and there's no warning whatsoever. And as you leave the tar, there's just a little piece of gravel, and I didn't even see it. There was just no warning. There was nothing I could do. It was just not a reading error or anything, and I just left the road. And that was it. I somersaulted, and I landed on the bottom of the tar road, the new main road.
Jeremy Davies was a shaken man after being hit by a local taxi and tumbled over a cliff 20 kilometres from the finish of the section.
Jeez, I never thought I'd come so close to dying. Willie as well.
The city is a dangerous place to race. There are places where it's very difficult to put warnings and so on. People have just got to drive with caution on these things, and that's all we can.
Saturday morning, and a crisp breeze blew through the mountain kingdom.